Warning: the material discussed in this show may be sensitive or a trigger for some listeners. Strong language and topics are discussed. We talk with active duty service members and practice OPSEC at all times. You have been warned.
The Bipolar DM, Jason Caughtham. His show talks about Dungeons and Dragons, indie writing, and living with a mental illness, in particular bipolar disorder, borderline disorder, and major depression, among other diagnoses. Check us out right here on Saturdays, 7 p.m. Eastern, also on WLFE-DB.com, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. So take a seat, sit back, and get ready for the Bipolar DM.
Welcome to the Bipolar DM show. I am your host, Jason, and this is a show about Dungeons and Dragons, indie writing, and living with a mental illness, in particular bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, and major depression, among other diagnoses. If you have any questions, comments, or topic suggestions and like to get a hold of me, you can reach me at thebipolardm@gmail.com. Or go to my webpage, www.thebipolardm.com. There you'll find previous episodes of my podcast, links to my live shows that I have, as well as resources on indie writing, Dungeons and Dragons, and mental health. Check us out on Facebook. We are on Facebook. The handle is at Bipolar DM. This is a little bit more up to date than my webpage, just because it's an easier platform for me to work from. So I have up to date on articles, videos, and other topics as well. We are on WLFE-DB.com is the name of our radio network. So if you do a Facebook search for WLFE-DB radio network, you can find us there, as well as our other shows that we got going on. We are on Stream TV, so for those of you with Roku's and other similar devices, we are on Stream TV under the Variety Unlimited channel, as well as on Twitch TV. So if you go to twitch.tv/thebipolardm, you can find our show there. We are proud supporters of Safe Space, and hello, Genevieve. Nice to have you on board. We are proud supporters of Safe Space. For those of you who are not familiar with what Safe Space is a virtual safe space for people to be able to go to who are in crisis. We are not doctors, we're not psychiatrists or psychologists or anything like that. We're just here to listen. So if you're going through an issue right now, going through troubles, be sure to check us out. Go to WLFE-DB.com and click on the resource banner that we have for Safe Space. That looks just like the one that's up in the corner right there. And okay. Also, Veteran Podcast Awards. The voting is going on right now. So for those of you who are veterans, active duty, including spouses as well, we have a podcast awards going on. If you go to Veterans Podcast Awards, Veteran, VETERAN, Podcast Awards, and that's awards plural.com. You can listen in on some of our podcasts that we got going on. You can vote until the 10th of September, 2021, with awards being announced on the 5th of October, 2021. So be sure to support your local veterans, your podcasting veterans with that. In news and noteworthy, I have a new show that started called the Mental Health Happy Hour. It is on Tuesdays, 2 p.m. We'll have links to that available to the new show on my webpage. Actually, it should already be up there. So if you go to www.thebipolardm.com, you should be able to find links to my new show, The Mental Health Happy Hour, which is taking a positive look at mental health and mental wellness. And I'm co-host with J.R. Reed from Not Weird, Just Autistic. And so it's going to be a great show. We've had some great guests on there. Coming up on this Tuesday, we're going to have a panel with some veterans discussing PTSD. So be sure to tune on that. That's Tuesday at 2 p.m. You can find it at facebook.com/not weird, just autistic. And let's go ahead and bring our guest out. We got Josh with us again today.
Hello.
Hello. It's great to have you back.
Wonderful to be back.
And today we're going to be talking about virtual tabletops, or VTTs. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. What is a virtual tabletop?
Well, so a virtual tabletop is, and this is really a perfect time to talk about it, because during this whole lockdown that we just had, these became a lot more popular. And I think a lot of people are continuing to use them, especially because, as anybody that plays D&D knows, one of the biggest frustrations is actually getting everybody together for a game. And
right.
The thing about these allow you to play from anywhere, as long as you have a reasonably good internet connection. A lot of them are web-based, and let's say what they are is they're basically a way to play D&D online. So most of them are going to be are 2D. You build your maps, you build your, all of your different backgrounds, your tiles, you put in your tokens. Tokens are your minis. So like for those of us that use miniatures and mapping and tiling and setting in our live games, this is the same thing, but online.
Yes.
Probably the one that I have used the most and the one that I have seen used the most. So it's like the Netflix of these online tabletop options would be Roll20. And Roll20 is it lets you use dynamic lighting so that if you put in a door, it'll block your players from seeing what's behind the door. So it's got a lot going on with it. Now, for me, what's really great about it is I have friends, as all of us who served in the military do. I have friends all over the world. I have friends on the other side of the world. I have friends in other countries. I have friends everywhere. And this allows all of us to get together and actually game. When I was stationed in Germany, I gamed with my folks back in Kansas City for 4 years, and then did it for 2 more years while I was in California before coming back to Kansas City. And so it is, they are your tabletop D&D game or Shadowrun game or any of your different role-playing games done online in a way that is very, very similar to tabletop, and in some ways superior as far as the visual stuff goes.
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there. You mentioned Roll20. There's also Fantasy Grounds. New ones popping up every day. And really it's what's the separating feature between when you look at Fantasy Grounds, Roll20, or any other virtual tabletop? What is it that you look at to distinguish one from the other? Well,
so the first thing you're looking at is going to be usability. You can have all the features in the world and be as neat a program as you can possibly imagine, but if it's not easy to use, people are going to go use a lesser program that's easier to use. So if you're coming out there and everything's got to be hand done and every little pixel has to be hand put in and everything like that, and it's not really user friendly, you're going to get that. Now, the other thing, of course, is cost. So, some of these costs, no, some of these costs as much as a video game. And then you don't get everything when you get them. So a lot of these, you can use the basic, program for free. But then if you want special add-ons, dynamic lighting or things of that nature, you have to have an account. And I'm going off of Roll20 on that one because that's the one I personally use, but most of these run with the same business model, which is the business model that basically everybody uses today for almost everything, which is the microtransaction, which is hey, we have a store and you can buy X, Y, and Z. Now, that can get a little frustrating, but on the other hand, it also is kind of cool. So you go in there and you want to run a specific campaign. Say you want to run one of the Pathfinder adventure paths. They're there. You can buy them right there. Most of them have been transferred over. So you can get these adventure paths and stuff and all of that pre-work. And that's another thing. Going into the how much pre-work is necessary. So me as a DM,
like making the maps and stuff like that.
Yeah. Me as a DM, as a game master, I am I like improv. I like working on my toes. I like the challenge. I like the excitement. I like the, coming up with things on the fly. It doesn't really work on, because it takes too long for you to get stuff up, even if you think of it. And that's with every program. So how much pre-work is necessary is one of the kind of big things, like on all of these programs. How much pre-work is necessary? Can I just click and drag a tile or click and drag a map and boom, there it is? Or do I have to line it up on the hex map? Do I have to, kind of adjust?
Layer it,
put the layers and layers and layers. Is the token creator easy? Now, token creator for player it's going to be your token, so your guy, and then it's going to be attached to your character sheet. So that happens right there. Now, as a DM, all the tokens, and this is kind of universal throughout, all the tokens are going to be attached to that monster or that NPC's character sheet. Right. And what that allows you to do, which is really cool, is have quick buttons. So you set up your quick buttons, and all you got to do is hit those quick buttons. You don't even have to look at your character sheet. You hit the quick buttons, and it'll roll the dice for you. It'll do the math. Boom, right there. Fantasy Grounds, going to that, it's really nice looking.
It's very polished.
It is very polished.
Thing about it, but
very professional.
But you're also got a double-edged sword with all that rendering, which is slower speeds.
And if you are dealing with, hey, I've got, my buddy is stationed in Afghanistan or stationed in Iraq or stationed in wherever, and he's using his very limited free time to play an hour or two with you, you don't want anything slowing that down.
Right.
And so your graphic heavy ones, which is the Fantasy Grounds, can be a graphic heavy one. And the thing is that they're all kind of progressing that way, with those options to be more graphic heavy. Roll20 just, you can have running water in it now. You can have flames going now, or soon to be able to. And that's kind of, and some of these are, honestly, they're 3D. They're not even 2D. They're 3D. So you're looking at a 3D mapping, and it looks almost like a video game. Like if you're playing Baldur's Gate or Baldur's Gate 3, obviously, the later games, or Divinity, or any of these games where you have a 3D kind of deal, and you have, but you have movement that's similar to, squares and hexes and what have you. And some of these games, they have that.
Yeah.
And it's super, super visually taxing on your machine.
Yeah.
I was going to slow it right down. And so when you get the connection and you're working and stuff like that, so that's another thing. I think as far as like it all, which one is better, which one is the good one to use, blah, 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 that kind of thing. I don't think that. I think it's more of a question of what works for your group.
Yeah. Because apples to oranges or apples to apples. I mean, how can you, you're going off what you compare to what you and your group can do, what your machine's capable of, all those things there. Cost, especially when they nickel and dime you with these market packages, too.
And so how I looked at it and how I kind of fell into when I started using them, Roll20 was kind of it. I think Fantasy Grounds was around, but it's, again, Fantasy Grounds is like, if I had that kind of money laying around, it's kind of like, it's kind of like the dwarven metal tiles for dungeons.
Oh yeah,
really nice rosin. But like, if I had that extra money laying around, I would certainly have all of those for gaming, for tabletop gaming. So Fantasy Grounds, again, it was around, but I think the price was kind of up there, and so Roll20 was kind of a more reasonable.
Especially with their free version.
Yeah.
Which is decent. You can get by, with it. You don't have all the beautiful graphics and stuff like that, but for free, it works.
And what it kind of has going for it, which I haven't looked into the other ones on this, they may have it, they may not. I haven't really looked into them. For that, Roll20 is basically like you only need one.
Yeah.
Right? Like everybody doesn't have to have a paid account to play and have all of those options available. And that's, to me, if like I was looking and I was like, okay, so you want everybody, like, to me, it just didn't work with the price, everybody paying for basically a video game.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't work for me. So for me, Roll20 works better. Now, that's not to say that Roll20 is the better product. Obviously, I'm not, saying Roll20 has not paid me any money. Roll20 does not, that just happens to be the one that I've used. Now, funny thing, going way back, before any of these came out, my best friend lives in D.C., lives in Washington, D.C., and he plays in almost every game that I run. And it started with Yahoo Messenger and a camera and a tabletop camera. And he was able to see, he was able to speak, he was able to see because I've always used minis and I've always used maps, and he was able to see all of that. And we had the rollout where you drew on it with with
the dry erase marker,
with a dry erase marker, and that's how we did it, and that's how we rolled for a while until steps come up. We moved to Skype, and then we moved to Discord. We moved to Discord recently, but this the virtual tabletops really are giving options to grow the hobby, to grow this gaming thing that we all love.
So let's look at the pandemic and virtual tabletops. How How has the pandemic helped virtual tabletops?
Well, so the thing,
I mean, it seems kind of obvious, but yeah.
yeah, it does. Well, here's the thing. There's something about gamers that a lot of people don't realize. I'm going to pull back the curtain and let out a little secret here that may kind of other gamers a little bit don't tell people that we actually like social interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Like outside of gaming, we tend to come across as maybe we don't like social interaction sometimes. But when it comes to gaming, those of us that do it, it's we need it. For various reasons. We need it. And this gave us that opportunity to get together every week and to do it. And on top of that, I think a lot of people picked up the game over the last year and a half based on the availability of virtual tabletops and the fact that it's a lot more convenient.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to pack all of your stuff. Most of the games have the basic rule set embedded in the game. So you don't have to have a player's handbook. I mean, trust me, they're nice to have. You should have them. But all of these games, you can kind of do all the basic stuff, character creation and all of that kind of stuff within the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes it a lot more accessible. So what you end up happening, and I haven't seen the numbers on this, so this is just kind of a hypothesis. I'd like to see the numbers. I'm sure Wizards of the Coast and Piazzo, and I'm sure they've done that market research and figured these things out. And I'm sure that's why they're actually, supporting these games, which are essentially, again, I make the comparison to Netflix, but that's kind of what these are a third-party way of playing Dungeons and Dragons, 5th Ed or 4th Ed, or whichever, Pathfinder.
Yeah, and what's great is how they're cooperating too. Wizards of the Coast is cooperating with Fantasy Grounds, D20, Discord, making their code available so that we can link those accounts together.
Well, it's just a hypothesis on Wizards of the Coast, but I think with the resurgence of 5th edition, the fact that 5th edition has really done well, they are looking, and especially with COVID and with the lockdown and with isolation and all those kind of things, they're looking for ways that they can get their product out there and keep their product on people's minds. And again, I don't, I do both. Like, I'm still doing tabletop. I still, we've all been vaccinated. We all, we all understand the kind of thing. And we're all pretty isolated in where we work and how we go out and things like that. And we're all work for companies that test us regularly. So we're getting together, very, very small group, following the rules here in Kansas City. And we're getting together and we are still doing that. But I also have a couple of virtual tabletop games, which I would not be able to play that many games if I was having to go out.
Yeah.
And go to somebody's
and drive and
Yeah, it would just take more time. And therein is another, now we, little aside here, but there is another bonus for these virtual tabletops. I find personally, and this is just me, this is kind of opinion versus objectivity. I'm not sure about the numbers on this, but I find personally, you get more playtime when you're doing it virtually. You get more time actually playing the game, as opposed to when you meet up, there's some social interaction that goes on, and out of a 4-hour game, you may actually play 2.5.
Yeah, and then plus you got the setup too. Set up the mini, set up the tabletop. Everybody getting ready. Here it's nice. You got a virtual tabletop. You're ready in 5 minutes, and you're ready to rock and roll.
And the DM can do all of the prep work. And once all that prep work's done, it's done. The DM's running it. He didn't have to. They don't have to worry about hardly anything when they've done this. Yeah. When they've done their prep work and things of that nature. And honestly, visually, some of these are really nice. Visually, some of these are better than what we're making. For those of us that don't have that extra money to be able to buy the professional rosin dungeon tiles and things like that, we're making ours out of cardboard and whatever.
Yeah, XPF foam. Yeah.
The foam and I just started working with foam, honestly. That kind of stuff. And so you can get some neat visuals and whatnot. And like I said, I think the most important part of all of these is that whether you use Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, Roll Steam, Battlegrounds, any of them, is that it grows the hobby. It gets more people involved. It gets more people interested. It makes things more convenient for people to get involved in. And it's a little like that, it makes things easier. People come in, they find out that they like it. They say, oh, this is really fun. This is enjoyable. I think I want to play a live tabletop game. Yeah. I think I want to get involved that way. And then, of course, they're doing that, so they end up, they end up buying the product. And if you're buying the product, the company is going to keep putting out the product, which is going to give work to content creators. And so, things work out for the best, and it keeps stuff going. I can't say enough for the periods of time where when we didn't have this, when we didn't have the virtual stuff, and for whatever reason, people weren't kind of knowledgeable and they didn't know about this thing and everything. And it felt like this hobby was going to die out. Yeah. And this feels like, because of the fact it brings us all together. Mm-hmm. So if you take all of us from around the world, this is a really big hobby. This is a really big activity. This is a really big community.
I think the last number I heard from Wizard of the Coast was 40 million have played at some time in their life worldwide.
So 40 million worldwide. Now, you might be the only person in your town that plays. Because, it's a big world, big population. But there are 40 million other people looking to play. This lets us all come together. Mm-hmm. You might be playing with a fella from Germany, a fella from China, a fella from Uzbekistan, and you're all playing together. Because there are communities where there's, hey, I got, I'm running this in Battlegrounds, come join us. We're looking for players, what have you. And so you got folks coming in, meeting new folks, bringing folks together, perpetuating it, and it just keeps growing, and it just keeps moving. And anything that brings people together like that is a good thing. Yeah. Using the technology.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we pick up on the after the break, we're going to talk about virtual tabletops in the professional DM, which is something new out there.
Oh, yeah. Life just got sweeter now that WLFE DB has merchandise. Show your support by purchasing your t-shirts for WLFE, Paratalk Radio, Inside the Drag Closet, and more. But it doesn't stop there. T-shirts, coffee mugs, tanks, buttons, cloth bags, and more. Go to WLFE-DB.com. On the top bar, click on the merchandise tab and bam, there you go. You got merch. Support the shows. WLFE-DB.com.
All right, welcome back. And speaking about merchandise, we do have T-shirts and some other merchandise available for the Bipolar DMs. So we have T-shirts, we have buttons, we got stickers. Check out our store. It's at the on Facebook. The handle is at BipolarDM or facebook.com/BipolarDM. And we got all kinds of stuff for you. All right, now getting back to virtual tabletops. One thing that's kind of new in the industry is the professional dungeon master. So how did that kind of come about?
I don't really know the history of how that came about. I know how I got invited, and there were a group of people that wanted to play, and they were willing to pay. And that's kind of how that happened. I know that I've run games at cons and been paid that way to run games at conventions. Mm-hmm. And that's usually through a product. Wizards of the Coast is wanting to sell a product. They want to showcase it, so they grab somebody and,
like an adventure or something like that, or a module.
Exactly. Piazzo wants to do it, and so and you know a guy. It's a little like, honestly, it's a little like anything else in the entertainment industry. It's kind of who you know, and mm-hmm. if you know folks and those sort of things can happen. And you can get out there. Now, this may be, like I said, how I've done it in the past, how I came into it is going to be different. And I feel like in talking to the other guys that have done this professionally and done this for pay and whatnot, I feel like every single one has their own story for how it happened. And every single one, there's no college that you go to for this,
right?
And then you come out and you put in your job applications and things like that. A lot of times you have to kind of know, oh hey, they're looking for DMs, for this and that, and they're willing to pay. And you kind of search it on the internet and.
And there are websites out there though too. I've run into them where mm-hmm. you can find a professional GM and they do the bookings and everything like that.
And that now we're getting into where the internet and technology are mm-hmm. being used to create, but to make a profession viable where. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, it wasn't so much viable. So right. You get a lot of content on the internet. You get a lot of content creators. You get a lot of people who are creating content. All of those people, and getting paid for it. All of those people would not have these jobs if it wasn't for the wonders of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of goes into, because of course this is part of the entertainment industry. That goes into DMs, game masters, however I say DM by default. Getting into doing this professionally. And much like I auditioned for a movie this last week. Why did I know how to? Where did I get that knowledge? Popped up on my Facebook. Mm-hmm. Popped up. They were looking for people to audition less than an hour away. All right, I'm going to go. And that now is kind of the, stuff pops up on my Facebook all the time. Hey, we're looking for players for X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Stuff pops up on my, we're looking for a DM to run blah, 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 blah. Oh, and it pays. Now, those opportunities are fairly far and few between when things were tabletop, when things were live, when things were basically it was conventions.
Yeah.
Maybe you might, like, I've done it at stores. I've done it for some of the bigger gaming stores in kind of around the world, really. And so that was kind of how I came into it, and kind of, it was, at first it was under the table. It was, hey, we're going to pay $100 to run this game. We need you for 8 hours, and we want to get these guys in. We want to be running this game here at the X store. We're going to pay you under the table. Da, da, da. Or, like, when I really first started, we're going to give you store credit. So as things happen, they stare up, they go up, they go up. And now you have folks running games on Battlegrounds, on Roll20, on Fantasy, whichever.
Yeah.
And not only are the DMs getting paid for it, players will pay to have the opportunity to play. Now, that's, I'm kind of more of a traditionalist. I feel like it's a hobby, and players should, not have to. But when players get together and they say, "Hey, we want to play this. We don't have a DM," or I'm in a DM for life. I don't want a DM anymore. This is an opportunity for them to say, "Hey, we're all going to pitch in X, Y, and Z, whatever it is, to get us somebody who's a professional at this, to get us somebody who this is what they do. They tell stories. They run people through these stories, and like I said, I think there's kind of two tiers of the professional DM. I think there's the one that works for the companies. That's like, hey, they're putting out a new product. I'm going to play test it. I'm going to run it for the company. Yeah. And they get paid that way. And then there are people more along my side, which are X stores looking for somebody to do it, looking for somebody online to do it, right? Looking for, that kind of thing. And so, little like YouTube, little like Netflix, little like any of these new entertainment avenues, you have more of an opportunity now to do these things professionally and to make money this way because of these products that are available, because we can now run really good games online. So there's not the overhead cost, there's not the space needed, there's not a lot of this stuff that prevented folks from doing it before. And so, you have people, not me, I'm not currently, but you have people making a decent living doing this. And so, and there's all, especially with all the online payment options and ways to pay and ways to, hey, you know what? We're going to pay X, Y, and Z to play. That means, the DM gets X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. I got a buddy of mine who runs 5 games a week, and that's how he's making his living.
And it's just a matter of setting up a web page and a payment option like PayPal or something like that, and or even run it through Facebook Business or whatnot. So there's so many options to get your stuff going, and then there's the group finders on Facebook where people looking for games and stuff like that. I've ran into a lot of pay to play DMs, trying just to find a free game.
I'll be honest with you, because I talk about DMD a lot, because I talk about gaming a lot. Most of my advertisement on Facebook is D&D advertising. Because
Yeah.
they have a really they have a good. I mean, say what you want about it, they have a good algorithm that figures out what you want to look at. Now, in my case, I'm very happy with that. I'm very happy that that's what pops up on the marketplace and whatnot, because I'm able to, oh, hey, they're looking for okay, you know what, I'm gonna or what have you. And so that works out for me. Some people would, doesn't from time to time, but for me, that really works out. And for me, anyways, Facebook is working the way it's supposed to, whereas I'm able to communicate with folks, I'm able to get involved with folks, and I'm able to hear about things. Like, for instance, I didn't know, like, I knew about Roll20 because I've been using it, but I really didn't know about all of the other available Beyond Tabletop or Astral Tabletop or Epic Table. I love anything with the word epic in the title. It's just a thing for me. And all of these look fantastic, and their user interface is fantastic. All of these kind of things is great. I learned about them because they popped up on my Facebook.
Yeah.
And so, it's more opportunity. That's really what it boils down to. These games give us is more opportunity. Are they, and so there are people that are getting to do this and getting to get paid to do this that otherwise wouldn't. And I think that that's super cool and super awesome, because these people that are making it are getting paid, and they're making a product and they're selling that product and people want to buy that product and they're getting paid. But then also they're opening up opportunities for people to do what they love.
Yeah.
For a living.
And that's what's great about it. Now, what about now that we have virtual tabletops, we got professional gaming. How has this, have you noticed anything like now the standard has been set for virtual tabletops and professional gaming, where it's kind of now it's expected? Because I'm old school. I'm theater of the mind. I have used virtual tabletops. I've played on them and everything like that. I'm very familiar with them, but I personally prefer not to use them in my gaming. And so how can somebody like me compete, against somebody who's like running a Fantasy Grounds or something very polished?
Well, and here's the thing. Just like your theater of the mind, just like that's how you like to game, there are players that like that as well.
Yeah.
There are players that prefer that as well. There are people that, because you get in the theater of the mind, and I've gamed with you, so I'm there with you on that. I've enjoyed the experience. The theater of the mind and whatnot, I feel like sometimes you get a better interaction between individuals, between people. I feel like it's, especially to me as a player, it encourages me to do a lot more characterization and kind of acting and kind of improv and kind of just interaction. Whereas as a DM, I find that so when you're tabletop and you've got your minis and you've got your setting and you've got all of that, you get a lot of interaction and things of that nature. But it's a little less than when it's theater of the mind.
Yeah.
And now we're getting into, because we're going to be objective and we're going to say the pros and cons. When you go to the virtual tabletops, there's even less of that kind of interaction between people. And it becomes, and because it looks like a video game, it becomes even more like a video game.
Yeah.
So you have a situation where your characters aren't really characters. They're
more like railroading.
Your characters are their stats. Your characters are, and you're trying to beat this video game. And I have called games, not professional ones. I would never do that. That's not professional. But just private games, just friendly games that I've been playing with friends. because it got to the point where everybody was logging on. There was no interaction with the characters. They were, and it just didn't sound like anybody was having fun.
Yeah.
And so, as the DM, that's the DM's responsibility, in my opinion. Right. This is just me. As a DM myself, my responsibility is to make sure that every single person is interacting, having an interactive experience, and enjoying the game. And all those visuals and all of the, things like that are really, really nice. They really make it easier. But I think that there's a balance point.
Yeah.
Where, like, when you get to the 3D and everything's in 3D and it's almost like a video game, I feel people start looking at it that way.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, for me, because Roll20 is 2D, and you're looking at things almost like you would on a table. Some tables, my stuff is a little more impressive, but that's, some tables. But you're looking at it with the tokens and things like that, and so it encourages a little more of the role playing that a lot of us like. I'm not a metagamer. I am not a power gamer. I am not I am a role player. First and foremost, I'm an actor. And so to me, that experience of getting to do that and getting to do an interactive story and getting to do that is the draw. And I think sometimes for players, they go either way. And that's the great thing about this game, is that it has something for everyone, is that it has opportunity for everyone. And it's not a issue. I don't think it's an issue of competition.
Right.
Because I think with this game, there is enough for all of us. Like you said, 40 million, that's a lot of people. Yeah. And, I think out of 40 million, 12 of us are DMs.
That's how it seems sometimes.
And so I feel like there's enough for every kind of gamer. And this appeals to a certain kind of gamer. This appeals to a very visual-minded. This appeals to a very visceral-minded. And it appeals to, I do also think, again, hypothesis, it appeals to a younger gamer. But to me, whatever gets people in, whatever gets them in to gaming, that's what's in, it's, that's what works. That's what we're having. That's what we're needing, is things to open up, get people involved, get people into it. I think that honestly, the theater of the mind way of gaming and whatnot is a lot more advanced. It's a lot more advanced than your Roll20 things of that nature. You really
have to work your noodle.
You do. You have to work your noodle. It's the funny thing is as much as I think it's advanced, that's how I feel like we all started. Yeah. Honestly. But I think, and I think that that's what intimidated a lot of people who otherwise would have played the game. And so I feel like over here you have you have the tabletop and whatnot, and those are a real great way to get your young folks in. Hey, look at this! Look how this neat, and this is how it plays, and da 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 da. And then eventually, it's going to come over here, and you're going to have people start coming over and being like, okay, you know what? Let's do this way. Let me try playing it this way. Let me try playing it that way. Let me try playing it like this. So when people say, how do I compete? We're not in competition with each other. We're in competition with the movies. We're in competition with television. We're in competition with with TikTok and all of the things that people get on their phone and just kind of isolate themselves and just kind of get away from everybody else and just kind of do their own thing. That's what we're trying to get people to say, hey, we've got this activity that is super fun. Let's get everybody in here and do it. Let's get together and do it. So I feel like it's a lot of people are going to like to do it theater of the mind. A lot of people are going to like to do it visually, but I think that they're both equally as viable.
Yeah.
And I think that they are equally as enjoyable.
Yeah. Now, Robert made a good point a little bit ago. Says no two games ever play the same way twice, and we're playing Curse of Strahd, which actually does that, where you can play it a dozen times, and every single time you play Curse of Strahd, it's different with the way the game's set up. And so it is true that when you're I'm running 2 Curse of Strahds, and both of them are worlds different in how they're being played. We got the game that you're in, and then I got another game that later that night with another group that's playing Curse of Strahd, and they're right behind you in the same adventure. But how they come up with their solutions and what they do and the party makeup way different. And so that's one of those great things about the game is that unlike a video game where it's the same monsters, same levels over and over again, it's never the same game twice, even if you're playing the same game over again, because there's so much sandbox and theater of the mind and where you can go and what you can do. Yeah. There's unlimited possibilities. And that's one of the great draws of this game versus video games is the open worlds where you can literally go anywhere and do anything that you want.
And that's the I feel like that's the DM's responsibility when he's using the virtual tabletops. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's the DM's responsibility to put in the work, to go through all of the stuff that's going to be all of the maps, everything like that, all of the and everything, know the stuff, and be able to work stuff on the fly so that you have a situation where the world is reacting to the players, not the players reacting to the world. Mm-hmm. So the game changes as the players run through.
Yep.
And that's really, honestly, because when you get, if you're running Curse of Strahd and you've got a fighter, a thief, a mage, and a cleric, the traditional 4-person party, it's going to do things a heck of a lot different than when you have a bard, whichever, you have a bard, a paladin, a ranger, a beastmaster, whatever classes you want to come together. Yeah. And, and you get the bard who has a wicked charisma, and so he's going to do things, he's going to talk his way out of things. But then you have over here, you have the traditional fighter who's just going to hit things. And you got to be able to, okay, he talked his way out of that. How are we going to move on since this game assumed they were going to fight their way out of it?
Yeah.
How are you going to make that work? And I think that's the job of the DM. Mm-hmm. I think that's why there is this burgeoning market for DMs. There's this burgeoning profession for DMs because that sort of hard work and professionalism and dedication, that's worth something. That's a skill that's worth something. And because of, it's all in when you're using these programs, much like when you're using the tiles and the miniatures and everything like that. As long as it's a tool for you as the DM, gold. Yeah. When it becomes when it controls the game.
Yeah.
When you're like, we got to do it this way because that's what the map says. We got to do it this way because that's what the game says. When you lose that ability to improv and to switch it up on the fly and to say, you know what, we're not going to do it the way that the adventure is written for this party to go through it. We're going to do it the way the party is going through it. So
I totally see the limitations of the virtual tabletop in that unless you've gotten a lot of maps like you would normally on pen and paper, you're limited to the world that you've created and prepared for. And if you haven't prepared for the contingencies, like my favorite story is when I was DMing, I was doing a second edition game with sort of some guys in the barracks, and they come to this town, hadn't done nothing, hadn't done shit. And the guard comes up to introduce himself and points them to the job board. And what's the first thing they do? One of them screams out, "Run." And I have a foot chase in 4 different directions that I had never done before. And that after that, I mean, that was a game that completely went off the rails from get-go. Yeah, and so I learned real quickly as a DM how to be ready for when those incidents happen. And it's very hard to do that, pull that off on a virtual tabletop if you haven't got the maps ready or anything like that. I mean, I can pull out a sheet of paper, just do a really quick map, and a lot faster than I can on a virtual tabletop, and bang out an adventure if something goes off the rails. But
yeah, the virtual tabletops require a lot of pre-work. They do. When I use them, I generally stack in a bunch of maps that I have. I take the maps. I have the map online. I have the picture of it and everything. I drop it in. I line it up on the grid, and then I save it. And I do a lot of my own. I don't traditionally buy anything. I make my own, and I get piles of them. I'll get 15, 16 throughout the game. I do that prep work. And for me, because I'm traditionally not a prepper, it's really given me an opportunity to learn to prep.
Yeah.
And to learn. And really, as a professional, when you're doing things professionally, you owe it to your players to do that kind of prep, to do the prep work, to do the work.
For our product.
Yeah, you owe it to people to do the work to make the game as best as you can. Now, I do that for my players now, even if it's not a professional game, even if it's just a game for fun, even if it's just a game, between friends, because I feel like I owe it to them too. I owe them that level of work. And so, I do it when it's regular tabletop. I do it when it's, but it takes, if you want to prepare a game where you can ad-lib and you can move around, it takes a heck of a lot more work on a virtual tabletop. It takes a lot of work to be able to set that up. And then on top of that, you got to start thinking, you got to think like your players. You're going to be like, what are they going to do? I need to prepare things for what they may possibly do.
Yep.
And you start, okay, if they go off this way, I'm going to need a map for that. If they go off that way, I'm going to need a map for that. I need about 15 of these.
And then you need to populate the map with monsters and treasure and other items too on top of that. And
I'm going to need about 15 of these monster tiles made up. And what I do is I always make everything up in advance. Make everything that I possibly can imagine up in advance. And and I know they're going to come up with stuff that you haven't imagined.
Yeah.
Because there's 4 of them and there's 1 of you. And no matter how, good of a thought process you have, they're gonna surprise you. And that's, for the DM, that's the fun for me.
Yeah.
Is when they hit you with something and you're like, all right, here we're gonna go. So
all right. Well,
again,
thank you. So
again, it's preference.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're at the end of the time. Had a great discussion. Enjoyed having you on, Josh. That was awesome. Someone will always go off script, Robert. That is very true. And that's the beauty of this game.
Usually me if I'm the player.
Yeah. So, all right. I'm going to go ahead and put you in the back just for a minute while I close this up. And thank you again for tuning in to the Bipolar DM show. I am your host, Jason, the Bipolar DM. Watch us live on Saturdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, here where you're watching this now, or on WLFE-DB.com, Stream TV on the Variety Limited channel, or on twitch.tv/The Bipolar DM. You can listen to the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, whether it's iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts. We're all on there. And if you want to get a hold of us, you can email me at thebipolardm@gmail.com or visit my webpage, thebipolardm.com. And for next week's show, we are going to have Erin back on as we talk a little bit more about what she's been doing and the industry of playing Dungeons and Dragons with your parents. Okay. Thank you again for tuning in to the Bipolar DM show. And remember, everybody, take your meds.
Thank you for listening to the Bipolar DM. They love sharing thoughts and ideas. See you next week, 7 p.m. Saturdays on WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows, and that makes for great talk radio. WLFE Digital Broadcast Network is on TV. You can watch all of our shows on WLFE-DB.com. Check out our channels. Paranormal View for all of your paranormal type shows. LGBTQ Friends for all of our LGBTQ shows. Variety Unlimited for all other shows. It runs 24/7 right on WLFE-DB.com. You'll even catch the lives, all in one place. Never miss an episode, past or future. WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows.